Hello, welcome to another door on the TooFatLardies Advent Calendar for 2022, and the big day draws ever closer. I hope you've done your Christmas shopping, or at least feel that you're organised and ready for the big day. Maybe you've got your plump bird all ready for the table. Well, if you have, then you're a very lucky chap. Christmas dinner is indeed one of the finest and most enjoyable parts of Christmas. Let's, however, not get ahead of ourselves. It's time to open the door on today, the 19th of December, and it falls to me to do that. So, without further ado, here we go. It says, hello Nick, we would like you, please, to get inside the TARDIS of Lard. Okay, where do you land and why? The TARDIS, that honourable machine of time travel. Okay, well, of course, with the TARDIS, I can go forward or I can go back. I really love to go forward. I really love to think about what might be happening in the future and to see what hasn't yet happened. How exciting would that be? But also, perhaps a little bit frightening as well. So let's start. Let's start by going back. Where will we go? If I could climb in the TARDIS of Lard, what would I use it for? The world truly would be my oyster, wouldn't it? I think that if I were able to climb on board the TARDIS of Lard, there are a few obvious places that I would go to. Without a shadow of a doubt, I would transport myself into the great cabin on board HMS Victory, when Nelson is surrounded by his band of brothers, his captains, and he is captivating them with his plan of action for the Battle of Trafalgar. And then to transport myself forward just 24 hours to the point where the action is at its hottest. Of course, doing this safe in the knowledge that my existence as a time traveller meant that I could not be wounded or hurt in any way, because the last place in the world that I would truly want to be is in any situation of incoming fire. Such a coward that I would be quivering below decks, I'm sure, but I'd like to be able to think that I would be able to see the scene on board the quarterdeck of the Victory as it went into action and crossed the French line, and to see Nelson in his finest moment. That would be really something, wouldn't it? So many climatic events from history that we would all go to, I'm sure. I think, though, that would be a bit easy, wouldn't it? And you do all of that, fair enough, but it wouldn't really change anything, just be able to see these things. So I quite like to put the time travel to good use. What I'd quite like to do, I think, is to use my TARDIS to tell the stories that we've never been able to tell. To go back to those moments in history and to find the answers to the questions that we don't have answers to. So, for instance, how many Spartans were there really at the Battle of Thermopylae? Were there 300 Spartans? I'd go back with my abacus and my pen and paper and I'd do an audit of how many Spartans there really were, so that we could tell the true story. And how many Persians were there? Really, we could tell the true story without any ambiguity. In a foul stroke, I could probably put 1,000 archaeologists out of work by going back in history and finding out what actually happened without any kind of question mark about that. We know the truth and nothing but the truth. So, yeah, I'd like to do that, to resolve some of the great myths of history. So what are the questions then that I'd like to resolve? Well, I haven't done a great deal of thought about this on the basis that it's a kind of a preposterous suggestion in the first place. So I'm not going to overthink it. But, for instance, I'd quite like to go back to the Battle of the Little Bighorn and find out what actually happened to Custer. The myth, of course, is of, the death of Custer, with him being surrounded by his men, and was he one of the first to go, or was he one of the last to go, or quite what happened? I think there's evidence to suggest that Custer fell quite early, evidence to suggest he was surrounded by his officers, but what really happened, I think, by getting in the TARDIS of Lard with my little video camera and my notebook, then we could find out exactly what it was that took place that fateful afternoon and tell the story so that the myth can be busted. I could go back to, for instance, the shooting down of von Richthofen, the Red Baron, claimed, of course, to have been shot down by Canadian Captain Roy Brown. But what actually happened? Who really bagged the Hun in that situation? Did he really shoot down the Red Baron, or was some other pilot truly able to claim it? So we could resolve that issue once and for all, couldn't we? We could go to Villers-Bocage in Normandy on the 8th of August 1944, where Michael Wittmann in his Tiger tank is pushing out to ambush and shoot up that British column. And we could find out who it was who actually put the fateful shot into Wittmann and end all the toing and froing about who it was that actually destroyed the German Panzer Ace. We would know the answer to that question. We could take ourselves forward then just a couple of months. We could go to Arnhem, couldn't we, on the 18th of September, to when Hauptsturmführer Victor Grabner is driving from Nijmegen back across the bridge into Arnhem, and of course is famously shot to pieces by Colonel Frost's men who were holding onto their bridgehead on the northern side of Arnhem Bridge. Why did Victor Grabner and his men cross the bridge in that fateful day? What were they trying to achieve, and why did the situation unfold in quite the way that it did? I'd go back there with my little camera, my little notebook, and I'd get some resolution on that fateful query. That would be definitely something I'd do. I'd go back even further in time. I'd go back to ancient times when Boudica, or Boadicea as even I used to know her, we were on good terms, when she took on the Romans somewhere on the A5. Well, it wasn't called the A5 then, of course, it was called Watling Street, but somewhere along Watling Street, Boudica fought the Romans. But where exactly did it happen? It appears nobody is really sure. Well, I would know, because I would go back with my GeoSat positioning system and I'd find out exactly where it was. Not only that, but I'd probably take my little shovel and spade and I'd take all those archaeologists that I've made unemployable, and they can come along with their little trowels and we could dig up that battlefield. And just think of the finds that would probably come from that. Just because I was able to get in my time machine and go backwards and forwards in history, resolving issues, becoming the Columbo of time travel, and asking just one more question that will allow us to shine light on some of these big uncertainties. You've probably got your own unsolved riddle about history that you'd like me to look at in my TARDIS. So maybe, if you're on YouTube, you can post your query in the comments. And when I do get my TARDIS for Christmas, I can put your question on the list and we can resolve that riddle too. But I think going forward would be a fascinating thing to do. And if I were to go forward in my time machine, obviously I'd start with the lottery numbers because that's surely the sensible thing to do. But beyond that, I'd like to go forward to a point in time to see what the future of figure gaming holds. Will we still be playing figure-based tabletop games in 50 years? Will we still be playing them in 70 years? What will they be like? What rules will we be using? What edition of Chain of Command will people be playing in the year 2250? That's the kind of thing that I'd like to be doing in my TARDIS. And I hope one day you can join me there.